Good morning, Colt Nation. I hope everybody is having a fabulous Wednesday today. Today is September 9th, 2020. I am going to go over the lesson that we went over this morning from at the 8 o'clock session. If you missed it, no worries. We're going to go over the exact same content right now. So with that being said, the topic for today is creating new pathways in your brain. I'm going to go through this presentation with you. The presentation can also be found in the Cult Connections Google Classroom, so you can follow along with that if you want to while I'm going over it as well. So to start off, we have been working on several key concepts throughout this unit. I'm going to review what those concepts were. The first one that we had was setting a growth mindset goal. That was the very first thing that I had asked you guys to do that very first week of school, was to come up with a growth mindset goal of something that you would like to achieve this school year. That was that's kind of our focus right now that we're going to keep going back to. So even today's lesson, just like last week's lessons, ties into that growth goal that you guys set. The second thing that we did, and this is what we did last week, was we identified roadblocks and barriers to reaching those goals. So we had a whole entire lesson on identifying roadblocks and barriers. Then we created if-then plans to address those barriers, how it is that we can break through those barriers. We talked about how those roadblocks and barriers can sometimes get in the way of us reaching the goal that we have created. So being proactive and creating the if-then plan helps us to persevere when we are struggling through a roadblock or barrier. I did want to share some of the if-then plans that were submitted by you guys. There were several amazing ones. These are just two that kind of stood out to me, and so I wanted to make sure that I shared those, but you guys did a great job on that. So some of the if-then plans you guys made, the first one, a student had a goal to make all A's and B's. His if-then plan was, if I do bad on a test, then I can ask the teacher how I can bring my grade up. I really loved that if-then goal, because a lot of times we get tests back and we just feel defeated. We're like, oh man, I failed that test. I tried, I studied. Oh well, I give up. I did the best I could. It is what it is. And we kind of get that mentality in our head. This goal, the if-then statement that this kid created, I loved it, because instead of taking that it is what it is attitude, he's being proactive and wants to know, what can I do to bring my grade up? I know that this test is going to really hurt my grade. My goal is to get all A's and B's. I don't just want to give up on that. I really want to stay focused on that goal. How can I bring my grade up? So going to that teacher, advocating for yourself, I thought that was amazing. The next goal that stood out was, my goal is to make new friends at school. If we are still doing online learning, then I can try to set something up through a video game to stay connected. So that was another if-then plan that stood out to me. I liked it just because it's hard with NTI and us not being able to be around our friends like we're used to and doing those things. But this person was able to think outside the box, and I really want to make new friends. So maybe in some of my classes, I can see what their interests are. If there's any Fortnite players, Call of Duty. I don't even know what's cool for video games anymore, because I'm just a Mario Kart girl myself. But whatever you guys, video games that you guys do to stay connected, I just thought that was pretty clever. So those were two that stood out to me from last week's assignment. So thank you, gentlemen, for working on that one. Today, we're going to learn how to grow our brains and get better at something new. And this ties in directly to what we talked about with our growth mindset goal, not giving up when we encounter barriers and roadblocks. We're going to go kind of behind the scenes and what it is our brains are doing when we are learning something new, which could be our goal. Maybe the goal that you created is something new. And even if it's something that you've worked on in the past, we're going to talk about how our brain is geared towards that. In today's lesson, there are 2 vocabulary terms that I just want to talk about up front, just because they're going to be referenced several times throughout the lesson. Those 2 terms, the first one is a neuron. So I'm sure that you guys have heard of that in your science class. A neuron is a cell that sends and receives signals in your brain. The second one, and this is our big buzzword for today, is a neural pathway. And that is a connection of neurons that forms when you repeat an action or a thought. So a connection of neurons that forms when you repeat an action or a thought. I'm going to go over what that means as far as creating pathways in our brain. I'm going to go over what that means in context in just a minute. But I did want to just go over the vocabulary briefly because it will be on your exit slip for today's lesson, and it's pretty much the focus of what we're talking about. Next, just to warm up, I want you to think about what is one thing you have worked hard to get better at. Think of something that you have worked hard to get better at. And it could be anything. It does not have to be school related, academic wise. It can be sports wise. I know in our lesson this morning, a lot of folks had several different things that they brought up. Somebody was good at anime drawing. That was something that he worked hard on. We had somebody who worked hard on piano. Somebody was doing guitar. Several were talking about art. There were a few video gamers who said that was something that they've worked hard to get better at. So just take a second and just in your head, think about something that you've worked really hard to get better at. Next, I want you to think about what did you do to get better? What did you do to get better at that? So to recap what we talked about this morning in our live lesson, a lot of students were referencing practicing, keep pushing yourself, not giving up. So to me, to tie those up and under one umbrella, so to speak, would be perseverance. So you persevere, you don't give up, right? When we encounter roadblocks, it's not an opportunity for us to quit. We're going to persevere. We're going to push through that. We're going to work hard to get through it, because at the end of the day, we're remembering what it is that our goal is. So just kind of, you're thinking about those 2 questions. Let's look at the next slide. Let's take a look at what happens in your brain when you're getting better at something. So this is a pretty cool YouTube video that ties in perfectly with what we're talking about. I'm going to click on this link. It's just 3 minutes.
What's going on in the brain when you learn? In order to learn anything, whether it's math, a foreign language, guitar, or how to dribble a basketball, you need to create and strengthen pathways in your brain. Think about shooting a free throw. Know that feeling when you've got it down and don't even have to think about it? That's muscle memory. Here's the thing. Muscle memory lives in the brain, not the muscles. Your brain controls everything your muscles do, and it does this by activating specific neural pathways for each and every movement. These are functional pathways, neurons working together to achieve a goal. Say you're learning how to shoot a free throw. If it's your first time doing it, you don't yet have a pathway for that movement in your brain. You need to create it. Let's use an analogy to look at what's happening in the brain during this time. When you're first learning, your brain is like a forest full of trees and dense foliage, with no clear pathway between point A and point B. As you learn the mechanics of shooting a free throw, you create a trail through the forest. Now you can shoot the free throw because you've created that pathway in your brain, but you probably don't make many shots because it's so new. the pathway isn't very clear yet. In order to improve your free throw, you need to refine and strengthen the free throw pathway in your brain. The way you do that is through practice. Practice gradually widens the trail through the trees, turning it into a dirt road between A and B. You're starting to get pretty good now. You're making more free throws than not. You don't have to think about the mechanics as much. That's because the pathway gets stronger after each practice rep, and you've done a lot of reps. With even more practice, the dirt road turns into a paved road connecting A and B, allowing information to be transmitted at a faster rate. Now you're a 70% free throw shooter, and when you step up to the line, you don't even have to think about it. Eventually, with enough practice, what started as a trail has become a full-blown highway. Now you're a master, draining almost every free throw, and the movement is completely second nature. Scientists call this plasticity, and it's your brain's innate ability to create and strengthen connections between neurons. These connections are the path through the forest. Halo Sport optimizes this process by temporarily increasing plasticity in the part of your brain that controls movement, so that your brain can create and strengthen these pathways faster than you would otherwise. We call this hyperplasticity. When you practice or train in this state, you're able to write muscle memory more effectively, allowing you to get that much more out of your practice. In terms of our analogy, Halo Sport helps you build super highways of muscle memory at an accelerated rate. It's not magic, it's neuroscience.
Okay, so even if you're not an athlete and basketball is not your thing, I hope that you are able to watch that video and understand how it is that that relates to goal setting and reaching your goal. So the neural pathways that are created, we're gonna talk about that, because remember, that was our buzzword for today. Scientists have found that people learn new things better and faster just by doing them. When we're learning something new, our brains actually grow. I'm so sorry, excuse me. When we're learning something new, our brains actually grow and make physical changes. Here are two vocabulary words that we talked about a couple slides ago, and these are going to be put into context. Did you know that your brains have about 86 billion special cells called neurons? So remember, neurons was one of our vocabulary words that we talked about in a couple slides ago. And you have 86 billion of those special cells in your brain. When we repeat an action or a thought, the neurons connect to each other to form neural pathways. And that's exactly what that video was showing. It was demonstrating the pathways between those neurons that cause that, that strong connection. And as you watched in that video, the more times that basketball player was practicing his free throws, the better it is that he got at that. That was something that neural pathway, that it got sharper, it got stronger connection as the amount of practice time took place. So what we did this morning, we played, we did an experiment. We played a game, rock, paper, scissors, and we did it by ourselves. We played rock, paper, scissors by ourselves. I'm going to explain to you how this works. But what this is going to do is we're going to practice making sharp neural pathways through this activity. So I'm going to look at the next slide. I'm going to go over this, and I'm going to kind of repeat the directions twice because it can be kind of confusing. So we're going to play rock, paper, scissors. Now that you guys have seen how to create neural pathways in your brain, we're going to try an activity that's going to help us strengthen those pathways. This activity is going to challenge your brain to do competing movements with your hands. You're going to play rock, paper, scissors, but instead of playing against someone else, you're going to play against yourself. Here are the rules. Just to go over the basics, remember with rock, paper, scissors, rock is a fist, okay? Paper is a flat hand out, and scissors is scissors right there, okay? So you have rock, paper, scissors. Sorry for that noise. I'm in my kids' room and some kind of toy is talking. So you have rock, paper, scissors. You're going to use both of your hands for this activity at the exact same time. Each hand has to do a different signal. Okay, so they can't both be rock, they can't both be paper, they can't both be scissors. Each hand has to do something different. Okay, remember that scissors beats paper. Scissors cuts paper, rock beats scissors, and paper covers rock. Right? Just in case you're new to the game. So scissors cut paper, rocks beat the scissors, and paper covers rock. Now, if you make scissor sign with your right hand, so in my right hand, I'm going to make the scissor sign, okay? My left hand, the rule of the game is my left hand always has to win. So if my scissors is right, the only thing that can beat scissors would be rock. So I would have to make a rock with this hand. Okay, so you can kind of see how this is going to be confusing for your brain, right? For us to, when we first start doing it. But you have scissors in your right hand. The only thing that can beat scissors is rock. So there. Now, if you do it again and you make a paper sign, so now I'm going to be paper over here. The only thing that beats paper is scissors. So with my left hand, I'm going to make scissors. Okay, so that's how that game is played. The key to this game, this experiment, is that your left hand always has to beat your right hand, and no cheating. You can't repeat the same two combinations over and over again. So I can't always say scissors, paper, scissors, paper, scissors, paper. That's totally cheating. So don't be that guy, okay? So you have to do something different. So if I did scissors, paper this time with my left hand, I can't do that again. I would have to do something different. So maybe paper over rock, okay? If you make a mistake, you have to start your count all over again. So if you make it all the way to 8 and then you mess up and your left hand didn't win, you got to go all the way back to 0. Now, I want you to really try this. I don't want you to just sit here and just stare at the screen when I set the timer, okay? I want you to really try it. I'm at an advantage because I've done this again this morning, so I've already done it a couple of times. But we're going to roll through this 2 different times. Both times, I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute. You're going to have 1 minute to see how high you can get your rock, paper, scissors count. Okay? Remember, if you mess up, you got to start all over. I'm going to click on the timer over here. The timer I'm going to set for 1 minute. Once you see the timer going, I want you to start playing, and you're going to see me and the screen down here. I'm going to try to be quiet, but I'm going to also be playing as well, and I'm going to see if I can beat your score. Don't worry, I'm not good at this game at all. And on your mark, get set, go. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. 1. You guys have 5 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I was able to get to 4, which actually beats my time this morning, which was 3. I know that's pretty lame. I'm sure maybe you guys were able to do better. I know that a lot of the boys this morning, they blew me out of the water the first time. But I beat my score from this morning, so I'm kind of proud about that. Let's talk about that. How did that go? I think it's challenging to do. I have to really kind of sit there and pause and think about it in my head and visualize it. I'm not able to go fast. The faster I go, the more mistakes I make, and then I have to start over. So think about, how did it go for you? Maybe you were a complete rock star at it the first time and you got a high score. So good. We're going to see if you can beat that in just a second. How many people were able to do it at least twice in a row? This time I can finally raise my hand because I was able to do it 4 times. I was not able to do it 4 times this morning. So the more I'm practicing, obviously, the better I'm getting at that. That neural pathway is getting stronger. Practice helps us get better at a skill. We're going to try it one more time. The exact same rules apply. So the left hand has to beat the right hand, and you can't repeat a thing. So if I do scissors, paper, I can't do scissors, paper back to back, right? I'll have to do something else. So no cheating. I'm going to set the timer again for 1 minute. I'll let you guys know when we get down to that 10-second mark. Keep a tally. Remember, you're starting over if you make a mistake. Go. Ten seconds left. Time's up. All right. So how did that go for you guys? Were you guys able to beat your score from the first time around? I got 5. I probably could have done better, but I was distracted. I don't know if you could hear my girls in the background, but they were kind of distracting me. I wasn't able to focus. But no excuses. I did beat my time, but just by 1. What did you notice about your ability to play the game as you continued to practice? So did you notice that it got a little bit easier? Maybe you guys were able to come up with like a pattern that you knew, and then your brain just got better at kind of repeating that pattern naturally without having to think about it as long. What is it that you noticed about your ability to play the game as you continue to practice? The boys this morning, they talked about how they were able to beat their time, and they, kind of chalked that up to the fact that they had done it just a couple minutes before, and so their body was just getting used to that. How does practicing something new and difficult help you grow your brain? So when you're doing that, you're making that buzzword I'm going to use again, that neural pathway, you're making that neural pathway strong. It's becoming something that is getting a sharper connection, connecting those neurons. That pathway is getting sharper, which means it's becoming something that is natural for your body. By no means are you an expert at rock, paper, scissors with your left hand winning every time. But what that does mean is if you continue to do that same experiment over and over, eventually that pathway is going to be so strong that it's just like a second nature. Your body's just going to remember. It's going to be able to do that so fast that you're not even really taking the time to think about it, just like in that video that we watched earlier. The big thing is making the connection. How does this information relate to what we have learned so far about setting growth mindset goals? So I want you guys to be able to see a connection between this activity we did today with what we've been talking about all month, right? And since the start of school. So you guys came up with a growth mindset goal. It's easy for us to lose sight of that goal it's easy for us to give up on that goal, unfortunately, because we come through challenges that we face, those roadblocks we talked about, and even though we know that that there are roadblocks and that there are wait just a minute. Even though we know that there are roadblocks and challenges that we're going to face, it's easy for us to kind of be discouraged and give up on those goals. So the purpose of today is for us to realize that our brains, the way that they work is those connections don't get stronger. Wait just a minute, baby. Those connections don't get stronger until we keep practicing them. You have to keep practicing them. You have to keep trying. And then you're going to realize that eventually that connection is going to be strong and it's going to help you reach that goal. It's going to be something that is going to just be just a habit. It's going to become a healthy habit, hopefully, depending on what your goal is. It's going to be a healthy habit that your brain is able to just quickly move from point A to point B on. So that's the connection I want to make, that we're not giving up. We're going to keep practicing towards that goal. We're going to do it. We're going to create strong neural pathways to help us reach those goals and have it be just kind of a second nature to us. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that experiment today and you got something out of the lesson. There is an exit slip activity that goes along with this lesson. It is found underneath your Google Classroom for Cult Connections. If you can log on there, click on the exit slip. It will ask you to define what a neural pathway is. It is going to have you talk about the experiment, and it's also going to have you make that connection to how it relates to your growth goal. So make sure that to get credit that you go on the Google Classroom and fill out that exit slip, and I look forward to reading what it is that you guys put in there. So thank you for your attention. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to email me. It's Natalie Waddell at jefferson.kyschools.us. My link to my Google Classroom, my Bitmoji Classroom, can be found on the